The 12 battleships of humanity's hidden fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation above the Keth homeworld, their massive forms casting shadows across continents as they blocked the light of the local sun below them. The planet Keth Prime teemed with billions of inhabitants who looked up at the sky and saw their own insignificance reflected in the hulls of vessels that dwarfed their greatest achievements. Emperor Kareth had gathered every remaining warship around his world. Nearly 2,000 vessels arranged in a defensive sphere that represented the last military strength of a civilization that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. They looked like insects surrounding a circle of mountains. Admiral Minjun Kang observed the Keth defenses from the bridge of the Terra, feeling no satisfaction in the overwhelming advantage his fleet possessed. Open a channel to the Imperial Palace, he ordered. The communication link established, and Kareth's ancient face appeared on the display screen, scales cracked with age and eyes burning with hatred. "Have you come to destroy us, human?" the Emperor demanded. "Have you come to reduce our world to ash as we would have done to yours?" "I have come to offer you one final chance at survival," Minjun replied calmly. "Stand down your forces, accept Earth's terms for peace, and the Keth civilization can continue to exist." Kareth's laughter was harsh and bitter. "You expect me to surrender our empire to primitives who crawled out of their caves barely moments ago in galactic terms? The Dominion has ruled for 50,000 years. We will not kneel to children. Then your stubbornness will doom your people. Better doom than dishonor," Kareth spat. "Better extinction than submission to creatures we once considered little more than animals." He gestured to someone off-screen. "I have one final surprise for you, Admiral, a weapon capable of reaching across the stars to strike at your precious Earth. If the Dominion must die, we will take humanity with us." Minjun felt ice form in his chest. "What weapon?" "The Stellar Annihilator," Kareth replied with vicious satisfaction. "A relic from the wars of ancient times, capable of destabilizing a star and destroying every planet in its system. I have targeted your sun." Alarms blared across the Terra's bridge as sensors detected massive energy buildup from a weapons platform hidden in the debris field of a shattered moon. "He is not bluffing," Commander Shin reported urgently. "That platform is charging a weapon of unprecedented destructive capability." Minjun made his decision instantly. "Eurasia, destroy that platform immediately." Captain Ji-Hoon Lee responded with perfect precision, his vessel's main weapon lancing out to strike the ancient device before it could complete its firing sequence. The platform detonated in a flash of light that briefly outshone the local sun, taking with it Emperor Kareth, final hope of victory through mutual destruction on the display screen. Kareth screamed with fury and despair. "You have taken everything from us," he raged. "You have destroyed our fleet, humiliated our warriors, and now you deny us even the dignity of revenge." Minjun's response was surprisingly gentle. "I have taken nothing that you did not force me to take, and I have destroyed nothing that did not threaten innocent lives." He leaned forward. "But I did not come here to argue with you, Emperor. I came to speak to your people." Ambassador Yonji Park's signal cut through every communication frequency on Keth Prime, bypassing Imperial sensors and military encryption to reach every screen and speaker on the planet. "Citizens of the Dominion," she began, "your Emperor has told you that humanity is your enemy, that we seek to destroy your civilization and enslave your people." Her image appeared in homes and workplaces and military barracks across the planet, and Keth citizens watched with confusion as this human female addressed them directly. "But I ask you to consider what you have actually witnessed. Yes, humanity defeated your fleets, but we disabled your ships rather than destroying them. We captured your warriors rather than killing them, and we have treated our prisoners with medical care and dignity." Footage appeared alongside her words, showing Keth prisoners being treated in human medical facilities. Their wounds tended and their basic needs provided for. We do not want to rule you, Yanji continued. We do not want to conquer your worlds or steal your resources. We want only to exist as your neighbors, not your masters and not your victims. She spread her hands in a gesture of openness. Your emperor would rather see every Keth citizen die than accept peace with humanity. But that is his pride speaking, not wisdom. I am asking you to choose a different path across Keth Prime. The message took root in hearts that had grown weary of endless war and imperial arrogance. Rebellions began within Hour's military commanders who had, seeing their forces shattered, refused to continue, following orders that would lead to extermination. Provincial governors declared independence from the imperial throne and open negotiations. With human diplomatic vessels, the emperor's on guard turned against him when he ordered them to execute any citizen who spoke of surrender within 3 cycles. Kareth the Undying met his end at the hands of his own people, brought down not by human weapons, but by Keth citizens who had finally chosen survival over pride. The new Keth government, led by a council of reformers who had long opposed the emperor's extremism, formally requested peace negotiations. Ambassador Yanji handled the discussions personally, crafting terms that were firm but not humiliating, demanding change but allowing the Keth to retain their dignity and their place among the galaxy's civilizations. 5 years past the galaxy that had been ruled by terror and conquest transformed into something new, something that previous generations would never have believed possible. The 5 empires still existed, their governments and cultures intact, but they no longer dominated through fear. Humanity had become something unprecedented. A peacekeeper that possessed overwhelming power but chose to use it sparingly. The 12 battleships patrolled the spaceways not as conquerors, but as guardians, their presence alone enough to prevent conflicts before they could begin. Trade flourished between species that had once viewed each other only as threats, and diplomatic missions traveled freely through territories that had been closed for millennia. Admiral Minjun Kang stood on the observation deck of the Terra, watching a joint training exercise where human vessels worked alongside ships from all 5 former empires. Ambassador Yanji joined him, her diplomatic duties finally allowing a moment of rest. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing, Minjun admitted quietly. Keeping such power secret for 50 years while our people suffered under imperial contempt. Yanji considered the question carefully before answering. The galaxy needed to learn that strength without wisdom leads to ruin. The empires had forgotten that lesson over thousands of years of domination. She gestured at the ships working together in the distance. We did not just reveal our power. We showed them a different way to use power. Protection instead of conquest. Cooperation instead of submission. Minjun nodded slowly. Our true victory was not building the battleships. It was knowing when not to use them. Yanji finished. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the future they had built together, somewhere far below on a rebuilt Keth colony world. A young girl pointed at the sky where the Pacific drifted past in its endless patrol. What is that, mother? She asked, eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. Her mother smiled and placed a gentle claw on her daughter's shoulder. That is one of humanity's guardian ships. They watch over everyone now, keeping us all safe. The child waved at the distant vessel, a gesture of innocent greeting across the vast emptiness of space on the Pacific's bridge. A junior officer noticed the tiny figure on the planet's surface and smiled. Captain Ru, he reported. I believe we have a fan. Sujin looked at the display showing the waving child and felt a warmth spread through her chest. She raised her own hand in response. A small gesture that the child would never see, but that somehow felt right. This was what they had built. Not an empire of fear, not a dominion of conquest, but a galaxy where children could wave at passing warships and expect nothing but protection in return. The Age of Empires was truly over. The Age of Guardians had begun. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction, its ceiling lost in artificial clouds that glowed with soft golden light. And representatives from 5 mighty empires sat in their designated sections like predators watching wounded prey. Ambassador Yanji Park stood alone at the central podium, a single human woman, facing the combined authority of civilizations that had ruled the stars for thousands of years, before her species had learned to make fire. The Keth Dominion delegation occupied the largest section, their reptilian forms draped in ceremonial armor that gleamed with the blood-red metals of their conquered worlds. And Grand Arbiter Thesk leaned forward with anticipation in his yellow eyes. Beside them sat the Shral hegemony representatives, insectoid beings whose compound eyes reflected the light in 1,000 different angles, their chitinous bodies clicking softly as they communicated through subtle vibrations. The Vorax Collective had sent their finest diplomatic units, beings who had long ago merged their biological forms with machines, their chrome-plated faces showing no emotion but their postures, radiating cold calculation. The Taelith Federation appeared almost gentle compared to their neighbors, their blue-skinned forms elegant and refined, though Yanji knew their apparent grace hid a ruthless pragmatism that had kept them alive among larger powers. Finally, the Nuran Empire's delegation loomed in their section, massive beings standing 3 meters tall with 4 arms each, their deep voices rumbling through the hall like distant thunder whenever they spoke. Thesk rose from his seat, and the hall fell silent with immediate obedience. "We have gathered here to address the matter of humanity," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Your species has existed among the stars for barely 2 centuries, yet you spread across the galactic rim like a disease." Yanji kept her expression neutral as the insult washed over her. "The 5 great empires have watched your expansion with growing concern," continued Thesk. "You establish colonies on worlds you have no right to claim. You build fleets that serve no defensive purpose, and you refuse to accept your proper place in the galactic order." A Shral representative rose next, her mandibles clicking in a pattern that the translation systems rendered as words. "We have tried to guide your species toward appropriate behavior," she said. "We've offered you the protection of established powers in exchange for reasonable limitations on your growth. Yet you have rejected every offer." The Vorax speaker activated, its mechanical voice flat and precise. "Analysis indicates that humanity will become a significant threat to regional stability within 50 standard years if current expansion rates continue. Logical response requires immediate intervention." Yanji finally spoke, her voice calm and clear. "The United Earth Government appreciates the Council's interest in our development. However, we must respectfully decline any arrangement that would restrict our right to peaceful expansion into unclaimed territory." Laughter rippled through the Keth delegation, a harsh sound like stones grinding together. "You decline," Thesk repeated with amusement dripping from every word. "A species with fewer than 50 warships declines the combined will of empires that command millions." He gestured broadly at the assembled delegates. "Let me explain your situation more clearly. Ambassador, the 5 empires have agreed to present you with terms. You will halt all expansion immediately. You will surrender your 17 outer colonies to joint imperial administration, and you will accept protectorate status under our oversight." Yanji tilted her head slightly. "And if we refuse these terms? Then the combined fleets of all 5 empires will reduce your worlds to ash," Thesk answered with casual menace. "We have allocated 30 standard cycles for you to consult with your government and accept reality." The Taelith representative raised a slender hand, We wish to note that the Federation takes no pleasure in this ultimatum. We would prefer a peaceful integration of humanity into galactic society. But your stubborn independence leaves us no choice. Yanji looked around the great hall, meeting the eyes of beings who saw her species as nothing more than an inconvenience to be managed or a threat to be eliminated. I will convey your terms to Earth, she said simply. May I ask one question before I depart? Thesk waved a clawed hand in permission. You speak of our 50 warships as if they represent the full extent of our capabilities, Yanji said. Have any of your intelligence services considered that we might have chosen to appear weak? Silence fell across the hall for a brief moment before the Keth delegation erupted in harsh laughter again. Your species has no subtlety, Thesk declared. We have watched you since your first steps beyond your home system. We know every ship you have built, every weapon you have developed, every base you have constructed. He leaned forward with predatory confidence. You have nothing hidden from us. Ambassador, nothing that could possibly change the mathematics of your destruction. Yanji allowed herself a small smile. Then you have nothing to fear from granting us 30 cycles to respond. She turned and walked from the podium, her aide specialist Dong Yun Chai falling into step beside her as they exited through the massive doors that separated the council chamber from the diplomatic quarters. They walked in silence through corridors filled with representatives from 100 different species, all of whom gave the humans wide berth. As news of the ultimatum spread through whispered conversations and transmitted data packets only when they reached the secured confines of their diplomatic vessel did Yanji speak again. Transmit the following to Strategic Command. Using Cipher 7, she instructed Dong Hyun. Message reads, they have taken the bait. Proceed to Phase 2. Signed Ambassador Park. Dong Hyun's fingers flew across the communication console. Message transmitted and confirmed. Received. He reported, then looked at his superior with curiosity. Ambassador, do you truly believe we can survive what is coming? Yanji settled into her seat as the ship's engines hummed to life. Specialist Chai. Humanity has spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment. Every insult we endured, every territory we surrendered, every appearance of weakness we cultivated has led to this day. She gazed out the viewport at the stars that the empires believed they owned. They think they know everything about us, and that assumption will be their downfall. Thousands of light years away, in a region of space that no imperial survey had ever reached, something stirred in the darkness between stars. The object was so massive that it had its own gravitational field, large enough that small moons had been captured in its orbit over the centuries. It had waited in silence. Lights began to flicker across its surface. Tiny pinpricks at first that grew into blazing lines of energy stretching for thousands of kilometers. Deep within the structure, systems that had slumbered for decades came alive as power cores ignited with the fury of captured suns. A voice crackled through internal communication channels, speaking words that had been rehearsed countless times but never spoken in earnest until now. All hands. This is Admiral Minjun Kang aboard Earth Vessel Atlantic. Authentication code Omega 773 confirmed. Phase 2 is now active. The Admiral paused, knowing that similar announcements were being made aboard 11 other vessels, hidden throughout human space. After 50 years of preparation, we finally get to show the galaxy who humanity really is. All stations report ready status. We move on my command, across the massive ship. Tens of thousands of crew members, who had trained in absolute secrecy for this moment, rushed to their stations with hearts pounding and spirits soaring. The asteroid shell that had hidden the Atlantic for decades began to crack and fall away, revealing the gleaming hull of a warship so large that the empires had no classification for it. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, Thesk was already celebrating humanity's inevitable submission. Utterly unaware that the galaxy he knew was about to end, the age of the five empires was over, humanity's time had finally come. Grand Marshal Vreth stood on the command deck of his flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the blue and green sphere of New Bizin grow larger on the display screens as his fleet approached. 800 warships of the Keth Dominion surrounded him, each one crewed by warriors who had spent their entire lives preparing to crush inferior species beneath the might of their empire. The human colony has begun. Evacuation procedures, reported his tactical officer. Civilian vessels are fleeing toward their inner systems. Vreth bared his fangs in what passed for a smile among his kind. Let them run. Their fear will spread word of what happens to those who defy the Dominion. He had waited years for this moment. Years of watching humanity spread across the galactic rim like vermin, while the Council debated and negotiated and accomplished nothing. Now the other empires had finally agreed to act. Though Vreth had no intention of sharing the glory with them, he would crush humanity before the deadline expired and claim their territory for the Dominion alone. Sir, we are detecting unusual energy readings from behind the fourth planet, the sensor officer announced with confusion in his voice. Identify the source. Unknown. The signature does not match any vessel in our database. Preliminary scans suggest an asteroid or small moon. Vreth dismissed the information with a wave of his clawed hand. Focus on the colony. I want our forces in bombardment position within the hour. His fleet continued its advance, spreading into an attack formation that would allow them to rain destruction upon the human settlement from multiple angles. Simultaneously, the colonists of New Bizin had perhaps 100,000 residents, farmers and miners and engineers who had built a life on this distant world. And Vreth intended to make an example of them that would echo across the galaxy. Grand Marshal. The sensor officer spoke again, his voice now trembling. The object behind the fourth planet is moving. Asteroids do not move on their own. Vreth snapped. This one does. And it is approaching our position at considerable speed. Vreth turned his attention to the tactical display, watching as the unknown contact emerged from the shadow of the gas giant. At first his mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. The object was enormous, larger than any space station he had ever encountered, larger than some moons, and it was accelerating toward his fleet with a speed that should have been impossible for something of that mass. What is that thing? Demanded one of his officers before anyone could answer. The object spoke. Attention Keth Invasion Fleet. This is Captain Sujin Ru of the Earth vessel Pacific. You have entered human territory with hostile intent, and you will withdraw immediately. Vreth stared at the display in disbelief. That is a ship? He whispered. Scanners confirm. The sensor officer replied, voice cracking. It appears to be a human warship, approximately 8,000 kilometers in diameter. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. 8,000 kilometers. Larger than many planets, larger than anything the Keth had ever built or imagined building. And it was heading directly toward them. Vreth forced his shock aside and straightened to his full height. One ship against 800. He declared loudly enough for his bridge crew to hear. No matter how large, it cannot stand against our combined firepower. All vessels opened fire. The Keth fleet unleashed everything they had. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Pacific. Enough destructive power to crack continents and boil oceans. A display of military might that had reduced dozens of civilizations to ash throughout history. The weapons struck the Pacific shields and accomplished nothing. Sujin watched from her command chair as the Keth Barish splashed harmlessly against the defensive barrier that surrounded her vessel. Shield integrity at 99.8%. Commander Tian Jiang reported from the defensive systems station. They would need to sustain fire for approximately 600 years to deplete our reserves at this rate. Noted, Sujin replied calmly. Target the lead elements of their formation. Primary beam at 5% power. 5%, Captain? We want to demonstrate our capabilities, not exterminate them. The Pacific's main weapon charged with a sound like thunder building in distant mountains. And then a beam of pure destruction lanced out across the void. The energy projector swept across the Keth formation in a single sustained burst. Lasting perhaps 10 seconds, 112 Keth warships died in that time. Their shields failed instantly. Their hulls vaporized. Their crews never even had time to understand what was killing them before they ceased to exist. Vreth watched in horror as the tactical display turned red with destruction. All ships. Evasive maneuvers, he screamed. Scatter the formation. His fleet broke apart in chaos. Vessels fleeing in every direction as survival instinct overwhelmed military discipline. The Pacific did not pursue. It simply hung in space like a predator that had already proven its dominance and saw no need for further demonstration. Attention, Grand Marshal Vreth. Sujin's voice came through the communication channels again. You have witnessed a fraction of what this vessel can do. I am now offering you a choice. Vreth's claws dug into the arms of his command. Chair hard enough to draw blood. You can withdraw your remaining forces and return to Keth space. Or you can watch me destroy every ship in your fleet one by one. The decision is yours. Pride and fury warred within Vreth's heart. And pride won. All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel's weapon systems, he commanded. We are warriors of the Dominion. We do not flee from a single enemy. The surviving Keth ships regrouped and launched a coordinated assault, focusing their combined firepower on the point. Where the Pacific's main beam had emerged, the attack was desperate and brave and completely futile. Sujin sighed softly. They never learn, she murmured, then raised her voice. Tactical, switch to precision targeting. Disable their engines and weapons without destroying the ships. Captain, that will take considerably longer than simply eliminating them. I know, but Admiral Kang wants witnesses. Begin systematic disabling. The Pacific went to work with surgical precision, its secondary weapons reaching out to strike individual Keth vessels with careful accuracy, one by one. The warships of the Dominion went dark as their propulsion systems failed and their weapons went offline, leaving them drifting helplessly in the void. Vreth could only watch as his mighty invasion force was reduced to a collection of powerless hulks in less than 4 hours. When it was over, the Pacific moved slowly through the debris field, its massive form casting shadows across the disabled vessels like a mountain passing over anthills. Grand Marshal Vreth, Sujin addressed him once more. Your ships have been disabled, but your crews are alive. Rescue vessels will arrive shortly to tow your fleet back to Keth space. She paused to let the words sink in. I suggest you use the journey home to consider what you have witnessed today. Humanity has 11 more ships like this one, and we will use them to defend ourselves against any empire that threatens our people. Vreth sat motionless in his command chair, surrounded by officers who could not meet his eyes. He had brought 800 warships to crush Awasha. Primitive species, a single human vessel had defeated him. Without suffering so much as a scratch on its hull, tell the other empires. Sujin concluded, tell them everything you saw here. And tell them that humanity will not be bullied anymore. The communication channel closed, leaving only silence on the bridge of the disabled Eternal Dominion. Vreth stared at the massive human ship as it turned away from his broken fleet. And for the first time in his long warrior's life, he knew what it meant to feel truly afraid. News of the disaster at New Bazan spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass, carried by emergency transmissions and terrified survivors and intelligence. Operatives who could barely believe what they were reporting in the gleaming council chambers of the Shral hegemony. Queen Bexith listened to the account with her compound eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the Pacific reducing an entire fleet to helplessness. "This is impossible," she declared, her mandibles clicking with agitation. "No species can build a vessel of that size. Our scientists would have detected such construction." Her advisors shifted uncomfortably, none of them willing to explain how humanity had accomplished what every expert had declared impossible across the galaxy. Similar scenes played out in the halls of power the Varrox Collective processed the data through their vast computational networks and reached a conclusion that sent ripples of electronic panic through their civilization. Humanity had been hiding capabilities that exceeded the combined military strength of all 5 empires. The Neuron Empire's War Council convened an emergency session where generals, who had spent centuries conquering lesser species now, debated whether surrender might be the wisest course of action. The Talith Federation's leaders gathered in quiet conference rooms, speaking in hushed voices about opportunities that this upheaval might create for their long-suffering civilization. Only the Keth Dominion responded with fury rather than fear. Emperor Karath, the Undying, received Grand Marshal Vreth in chains, dragging the defeated commander before the throne to answer for his humiliation. "You allowed a single human ship to destroy our invasion force," Karath hissed, his ancient scales cracking with rage. "You have brought shame upon the entire Dominion." Vreth knelt before his emperor with what remained of his pride in tatters. "I brought 800 warships against a vessel the size of a small moon. My lord, nothing in our arsenal could penetrate its shields. Then we will build weapons that can," Karath declared. "We will forge an alliance with the other empires and crush these humans beneath our combined might." The Emperor's declaration reached the other empires within hours, and for once they found themselves in agreement within 10 standard cycles. The largest military alliance in galactic history had formed, combining the fleets of all 5 empires into a single armada that numbered over 10,000 warships. They assembled at the neutral system of Korath, far from any inhabited world, where their combined force would demonstrate that humanity's single victory had been nothing more than luck. Admiral Minjun Kang received the intelligence. Reports aboard the Terra with a calm that his officers found almost unsettling. 10,000 ships, Commander Shin observed, studying the tactical display. "They have committed everything they have." "Good," Minjun replied. "That means this can be settled quickly." He opened a communication channel to the battleship commanders. "Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic, Antarctic, and Mediterranean will accompany Terra to Korath. The remaining ships will continue defensive patrols of human space." Captain Sujin Ru acknowledged from the Pacific, 6 ships against 10,000. "Admiral, the odds are still overwhelmingly in our favor." It was not a boast, but a simple statement of fact. The 7 battleships emerged from hyperspace at Korath to find the combined Imperial fleet waiting in a formation that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Imperial commanders had positioned their vessels in layered defensive arrangements, concentrating their firepower and overlapping their shields in patterns that their tacticians had calculated would maximize their effectiveness. None of it mattered. Admiral Minjun broadcast on all frequencies, his words reaching every ship in both fleets. "This is Admiral Minjun Kang of the United Earth Fleet. You have assembled here to threaten humanity with destruction, and I have come to demonstrate why that threat is meaningless." The Imperial fleet opened fire without waiting for the humans to finish speaking. 10,000 vessels unleashed their weapons simultaneously, creating a storm of energy and projectiles that would have reduced an ordinary planet to rubble. The 7 human battleships advanced through the barrage without slowing, their shields absorbing punishment that would have annihilated any conventional fleet 1,000 times over. All vessels. Begin systematic disabling, Minjin ordered. Minimize casualties where possible. But ensure that every ship in this fleet is rendered unable to continue. What followed was not a battle, but a demonstration. The 10 human battleships moved through the Imperial formation with methodical precision, their weapons striking with surgical accuracy to destroy engines and disable weapon systems while leaving hulls intact. Crews abandoned their stations and fled to escape pods as ship after ship went dark. Imperial commanders screamed orders that their subordinates could not execute. Their communications filled with panic and disbelief as the humans systematically dismantled their combined military might. The Battle of Korath lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 10,000 Imperial warships drifted powerless in the void, their crews alive, but their vessels reduced to helpless debris. Not a single human ship had suffered any meaningful damage. Ambassador Yonji Park's voice replaced Admiral Minjun's on the galactic broadcast frequencies, her words reaching every inhabited world in known space. Citizens of the galaxy, what you have witnessed today is not an act of aggression, but a demonstration of capability. Humanity does not seek to conquer your worlds or enslave your peoples. She paused to let the statement register. We seek only the right to exist in peace, to expand into unclaimed territory, and to be treated as equals rather than inferiors. Any civilization that accepts these simple terms will find humanity to be a generous and reliable partner. The response came faster than anyone had anticipated. Within 3 cycles, the Taelith Federation formally requested an alliance with humanity, their ambassador appearing before Yonji with barely concealed hope in her blue features. The Taelith have been the smallest and weakest of the empires for millennia, the ambassador explained. We have survived only by playing the larger powers against each other, but we have never had a true ally. Yonji welcomed them with a warmth that surprised the Taelith delegation. Humanity remembers what it feels like to be underestimated, she replied. We will stand with you. The Vorex Collective followed within days, their logical analysis concluding that alliance with humanity offered far better outcomes than continued opposition. The Nuran Empire sent envoys shortly after, their proud warriors humbled by a defeat they could not rationalize away. Even the Shral hegemony eventually sued for peace. Queen Vexith, recognizing that her swarm could not survive a war against enemies who rendered their numerical advantages meaningless. Only the Keth Dominion remained defiant. Emperor Karath appeared on every communication channel in his territory, his ancient face twisted with hatred. The Dominion does not surrender, he proclaimed. We do not bow to upstart primitives from a death world. If our allies have chosen cowardice, then we will stand alone. He raised a clawed fist toward the stars. We will fight to the last warrior. We will destroy ourselves before we accept human dominance. And we will take as many of them with us as we can, across the galaxy. The other species watched and wondered whether humanity would respond to this defiance with the mercy they had shown at Korath, or with the destruction that any previous galactic power would have delivered without hesitation. In the command center of the Terra, Admiral Minjin Kang studied the reports of Keth military activity with troubled eyes. They are concentrating their remaining forces around their homeworld, Commander Shin reported. Every ship they have left, every weapon they can deploy. They mean to make a final stand, Minjin murmured, or to launch one last desperate attack, Shin added grimly. Intelligence suggests the Emperor may be preparing planet-killing weapons. Minjin turned to face the stars. Then we have no choice. Prepare all 12 battleships for deployment to Keth space. It is time to end this. Admiral Minjin Kang stood on the bridge of the Atlantic, watching through the main viewport as the last fragments of asteroid debris drifted away from his ship like dust falling from the shoulders of a waking giant. The bridge itself was larger than most Imperial cruisers. A vast command center filled with hundreds of stations where officers monitored systems that the galaxy's greatest engineers could not have. Imagined final separation complete, reported Commander Yoonji Shin from the tactical station. All systems showing green across the board. Minjun nodded slowly, still processing the reality of this moment after decades of preparation. Open a channel to the other vessels. The main display flickered to life, showing 11 other faces, each commanding a ship identical to the Atlantic in size and power. Sisters and brothers, Minjun addressed them. 50 years ago, humanity discovered something that changed everything. And today we finally reveal what we built with that discovery. He turned to face a secondary display that showed historical footage. Images that only a handful of humans had ever seen. The footage showed the exploration vessel Wanderer approaching a massive structure hidden within the Obsidian Nebula. A station so old that its builders had vanished from the galaxy millions of years before any current civilization had evolved. The architects left behind technology beyond anything we had ever dreamed. Minjun continued. Weapons that could crack planets. Drives that could cross the galaxy in days. Power systems that harnessed the energy of collapsing stars. The display shifted to show the early years of the project, when Earth's unified government had made the most difficult decision in human history. We could have announced this discovery to the galaxy, Minjun said. We could have used this technology to demand immediate respect from the empires that looked down on us. His expression hardened, but we knew that would only unite them against us before we were ready. So we chose a different path. We chose patience. Captain Sujin Ryu of the Pacific spoke through the communication link. 50 years of being mocked and threatened while we built in secret. 50 years of watching our people endure the contempt of species who thought they were our superiors. And now those years of patience will pay off, Minjun replied. The empires believe they know everything about humanity. They believe our 50 conventional warships represent the full extent of our military capability. He allowed himself a rare smile. They have no idea that we command 12 planet-sized battleships, each one capable of defeating their entire combined fleet. The ships were named after the great features of humanity's homeworld: Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Arctic, Antarctic, Mediterranean, Caribbean, Eurasia, Americas, Africa, Australia, and the flagship Terra. Each vessel measured over 8,000 kilometers in diameter, large enough to have their own weather systems in the vast interior spaces where crew quarters and recreation. Facilities sprawled like small cities. Their weapons included energy projectors that could sustain continuous fire for hours, missile systems that launched projectiles at near-light speed, and defensive shields that could withstand bombardment from entire enemy fleets. Their drives used principles that human physicists still did not fully understand, bending space itself to allow movement across impossible distances in mere hours. All vessels report full crew readiness, Commander Shin announced. Phase 2 deployment positions calculated and locked. Minjun studied the star map that showed the positions of all 12 battleships, scattered across human space in locations that Imperial intelligence had never thought to investigate for 50 years. We hid these ships inside asteroids and dead moons, he said. For 50 years, our crews trained in absolute secrecy, never speaking of their true purpose, even to family members. He looked at the faces of his fellow commanders, seeing the same mixture of pride and anticipation that he felt. Now the empires have given us exactly what we needed, a clear threat that justifies our response. They demanded our surrender, and we will give them an answer they never expected. Captain Ji-Hoon Lee of the Eurasia raised a concern. Admiral, our intelligence suggests the Keth may not wait for the full 30 cycles. Their military commander Vreth is known for aggressive action. We are counting on that, Minjun replied. Ambassador Park deliberately provoked them during the council session. "We want the Keth to strike first." Captain Youngmi, Han of the Americas, nodded in understanding. "If they attack us before the deadline, the other empires cannot claim we were the aggressors. We will be defending ourselves against unprovoked invasion." "Exactly," Minjin confirmed. "The Keth have always been the most violent of the empires. They will not be able to resist the opportunity to crush us before the others can claim a share of our territory." He turned to address all commanders. "When the Keth fleet arrives at our border, the Pacific will be there to greet them, Captain Ru. You will engage with minimum necessary force. Disable their ships but avoid unnecessary destruction." Sujin's expression showed no surprise at these orders. "You want survivors to carry word back to their empire," she said. "I want witnesses," Minjun corrected. "I want every species in the galaxy to hear first-hand accounts of what humanity can do. Fear will accomplish more than any amount of destruction." He pulled up tactical projections showing likely Keth invasion routes. The empires have ruled from terror for thousands of years. They have destroyed entire species that dared to challenge their authority. They have never faced an opponent who could match their violence. His voice grew cold. "We will not destroy them. We will not conquer them. We will simply show them that the age of empires is over from this day forward. No species will ever threaten humanity again." The communication channel filled with affirmations from the other commanders. "All vessels, begin deployment to assigned positions," Minjun ordered. "Maintain communication silence until engagement. May fortune favor us all, one by one." The massive battleships engaged their drives and vanished into the darkness between stars on the bridge of the Atlantic. Commander Shin approached Minjin with a datapad. "Admiral, we have received a personal message from Ambassador Park. She confirms that Keth fleet mobilization has begun." Minjun read the message and felt a grim satisfaction settle over him. "Grand Marshal Vreth commands the invasion force personally. 800 warships aimed at our border colonies." He looked out at the stars that humanity had been forbidden to claim. "He brings 800 ships to intimidate us, and he will meet a single one of ours. Somehow, I doubt he will find the exchange favorable. Deep in space." The Pacific moved into position near the colony world of New Bizen, waiting in the shadow of a gas giant where sensors could not detect its presence. Captain Sujin Ru sat in her command chair, watching the tactical display that showed the approaching Keth fleet like a swarm of angry insects. "All crew to battle stations," she ordered calmly. "Today we show the galaxy what humanity has been hiding." The great ship hummed with power as weapon systems came online, each one capable of destruction on a scale the empires had never witnessed. The Keth fleet continued its approach, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had no idea they were flying toward their own humiliation.